In this video, we're going to look at how we can draw this crucifix style project that we do in Year 8. It's 220 millimeters tall, 180 millimeters across, and we're using a cross-lap joint in the center. Now, before we go too much further, we'll just point out that I am using the online SketchUp app. It's the education version. The main reason I point this out is if you're using the traditional installed application, your screen will look slightly different. The main difference, of course, is all the tools that are here on the left-hand side will generally be across the top. The icons are fairly similar in style, but they are positioned differently. So you'll be able to follow along still. All the functions are the same, but it will just look slightly different. Okay, so to begin, I'm just going to clear everything that I do have on this screen, just deleting it, and we'll start from the beginning. Okay, now that I've got my center back, I'm just going to start by working out how I want to go about drawing this. Now, I could very easily draw a crucifix shape just with line or box tools. I could do it a number of different ways, but the fact that I'm trying to model what I'm going to be doing in the practical classroom, specifically two pieces that I put a cross-lap joint onto, I'm going to model them in a very similar way to the real pieces. So I'm going to start by simply drawing a rectangle. I'm not really worried about the size. Obviously, this is going to be too big, but I'm just trying to get the approximate shape. So this is going to be my horizontal piece. Now, if I look down the bottom, as soon as I let go of the mouse, I look down the bottom to my sizes, I can see that I've drawn something quite large, 4,960 millimeters by 945 millimeters, way bigger than I need. But what this does tell me is that obviously the long dimension is the first dimension here, and the second dimension is the smaller one. In my case, I want it to be 180 millimeters across, and our wood is 30 millimeters wide. So I'm simply going to type those numbers in now, taking advantage of the dimensions box, making sure I have the comma in between because there's two dimensions. Once I press enter, you can see it shrunk right down. So I'm going to take advantage now of the zoom to extents tool, this one here, very similar icon if you're using the other version, to zoom into this entire size here. Again, I'm using a mouse with a scroll wheel, so I'm just going to scroll out a little bit further just to zoom out. Otherwise, I would have to use the zoom tools, which are also located in here. There's the zoom tool for you. What I want to do now is to make this into a piece of wood, essentially, and our wood that we're using is 12 millimeters thick. So I'm just going to pull it up, and again, taking advantage of the fact that I can type in my measurement down here in the bottom right corner. We're going to type in 12 to take it to 12 millimeters. So essentially I have something that's like the piece of wood I would now have in the classroom. So what I need to do now is to put a cross-lap, or at least half of a cross-lap joint, right in the middle of this piece here. So I'm going to do that in a very similar way to what I'll do in the class on wood. I'm going to start by drawing with my tape measure the center point. In fact, no, I won't do that. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that there are these built-in nodes, and especially the center point node right here, or midpoint. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the pencil, and I'm simply going to take advantage of that midpoint node. Where is it? There it is, gone blue. I'm going to go straight across, making sure that it stays green because I'm on the green axis at the moment, and I'm at the midpoint on the other side. If I was going to do this with the ruler, I would have to know this distance of 180, and I'd use a ruler line to get this center point as well. But the fact that there is a built-in midpoint just makes it a little easier. I am now going to use the tape measure though, and I'm going to go from this center point on either side, and it's going to be 15 millimeters because I know that my total for this cross lap joint has to be 30 millimeters. So 15 millimeters either side of the center is going to give me my total of 30 that I need. I'm now going to use my pencil tool again, and the nodes that these lines have made with the side lines, I'm just going to join them up. So from that node across here, all right, and I've now got the whole center area done. And very simply, I'm going to use my push-pull tool now to pull these down. Again, I'm just going to go any amount, doesn't matter, and then type in 6 so it's in the bottom dimension tool, and again 6 here so I know I've got exactly what I need. A little bit of cleaning up quickly. I'm going to use my rubber tool just to remove these construction lines, and then I'm going to take my selection tool, select the entire object, right click, and I'm going to turn it into a group. Now the reason I've done a group is just to make it easier to move it around, rotate it and things like that, so that I don't have to try and grab each line that makes up this object in the future. Okay, that's my horizontal piece. Now I'm just zooming out a bit to get some more space. What I now need to do is to do my vertical piece of this cross. So again, I'm going to start in a very similar way. I'm going to take my rectangle. I'm going to just draw a shape that's approximately what I want. Again, I'm going to put my actual measurements in the bottom. Now this time, the smaller measurement is the first measurement because obviously I've drawn this around a different way. So now I'm going to be going 30, 220, which is the size of what I'm trying to create. Again, like before, I'm going to just pull this up to be my 12mm thickness, and this is my other piece. I'm just going to zoom into that one a bit closer. Now, unlike the first piece, I'm not putting the cross slap in the center of this piece. I want it just offset towards the top a bit. So what I'm going to start is I'm going to find a line that is 50mm from the top, and that will become the top of my cross slap joint. So again, I'll use my tape measure for this. Start from the top, coming down 50mm. I'm just going to type it in again, and I've got that correct line there. And I know it needs to be 30mm from there. So again, I'm going to use that line now as my starting point and do another construction line, typing it in. That is exactly 30 from there. I could use my pencil tool to go across again, but just for a little bit of difference, I'm going to again use my rectangle tool. I'm going to zoom in a bit just to see it a bit more clearly. And again, I'm going to go from the intersection of my construction line and the edge to my other intersection over here. And I've drawn that box in. And like before, use my push-pull tool, push it down by 6mm, typing it in. And I've got my second joint there. Just turn it around so you can see it a bit better. As with before, I'm going to rub out the construction lines. And I also want to turn this into groups. I'm just going to zoom out a bit. And I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm going to grab that and turn it into a selection. Now you do have to be careful that you don't accidentally choose your other pieces or any other parts of your model. Sometimes you have to rotate it and get it into an angle where you can very clearly grab just that piece. But I've got that, right click, make it into a group. Okay. Now that I've got the two pieces, it's simply a case of putting them together, joining them just like in real life using the cross slap joint. Now you might notice the first issue we have is that we've drawn it with both of the joints facing up, but in actual fact I want to flip one of these pieces over so that the joint on one can slot into the joint on the other. I'm going to do that with this vertical piece in this case. I could do it with either, it doesn't really matter, but I've got this one already in the angle. I like it. So basically I want to turn this 180 degrees around. Now this is where the grouping came in really handy, because if I didn't group this and I tried to just rotate it, what I would be doing is rotating just a surface and I'd get this really twisted mess. So if you haven't already grouped it, you really want to do that now. So I'm just going to zoom in again a bit closer just so I can see it a bit more easily. And I'm now going to come back to my rotation tools, and this time I'm going to grab, no, sorry, it's not there, it's the moving tool, sorry. I'm going to grab here and I want to grab this rotation tool. So I can got a little compass showing up now, and what we basically need to do is click in two places. The first click is going to basically create our pivot point, the place where it pivots around, and our second point sort of grabs a handle, if you like, and it's as if we're grabbing it from there and pivoting at that point. So what I want to do is I want to pivot from this corner point, and I want to pivot as if I grab it here and turn it round. So what I want to be really careful of is the axis that it's showing. So you can see how it's changing between the blue and the green axes. I definitely want the green axis. So what I'm making sure is that my corner that I'm choosing is in the green axis at the time. And I'm just coming across this line a bit, still staying on the axis and clicking on that line. And what I've basically got now is a pivot point around there. So you can see how it's pivoting around that green axis from the point that I first clicked on. So I could just try and turn it around and get it accurately. And in fact, it will actually snap into where I want. But if you want a specific direction or a specific amount, again, it's easier just to type it in. So I know that I want to go 180 degrees right around, flipping it over. So I can just type it in. Again, if you look down the bottom right, you'll see it says angle now instead of dimensions. So once I press enter, it's flipped at exactly the degrees I want. Now be careful that you don't go clicking other random places while you still got this protractor chosen, because you'll start flipping things that you weren't expecting. So I straight away go and grab another tool. Okay, so if I zoom out again, I've now got two pieces. I've got my vertical piece with the cross-lap now facing downwards, and I've got my horizontal piece with the cross-lap facing up. And I basically need to bring these two together. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to go back to my moving tools, not rotate, yep, moving tools, here it is, the four-way arrow, and I basically want to grab this piece and bring it closer. I'm again going to use my zoom to extent tool, just to make it a bit easier to see, get it into the whole model, and I'm going to take advantage of one more cool feature of SketchUp, and that is that nodes, so these are things like corners and intersections, they like to lock together. So coming back to my move tool, I'm basically going to take, and zooming in a little bit there, take the fact that this corner here, we know is going to come down and join to this corner here if this was the cross-lap joint. So I'm going to take advantage of that fact that this node wants to lock in together with another node. So if I bring them together, they will eventually lock together. Sometimes you have to rotate and zoom to get the angle that best gets that. So I'm just going to try and get that out a bit more. Go. So just sometimes you have to move it around a bit until you get the best angle, but I can now say, yep, those two nodes are locking together. And if I zoom out, rotate a little bit to see it, I'll now see that I've got my two pieces crossing over using that cross-lap joint. Of course, being a virtual model, they would have slotted together regardless of having the cross-lap joint or not, but the whole point of modeling this is to see how things fit together neatly. And of course, now that I've done this, if I was trying to work out how this would work, I could come over, get things like my dimensioning tools, and I could easily find out what different measurements are. And that way I'll be able to go and get the correct pieces of material to cut and not have as much wastage as I would in the future. Okay, so that's how we go about this. You might need to watch the video a few times, but you should now be able to create a properly drawn and dimensioned crucifix using the dimensions that we use in class, and most importantly having a correct and accurate cross-lap joint.